Good morning and welcome to FrostTalk. Today we'll be talking about how Target's Pride Month follies just got infinitely worse, the Biden administration's investment into internet infrastructure in Alaska, and the anti-Semitic nature of the French Riots. So to jump right in on the Target story, we've all been acquainted at this point with Target's disastrous Pride Month decisions with their creating tuck-friendly children's swimwear and hiring on a straight-up Satanist designer with such designs as Satan respects pronouns. And this has been a complete financial disaster for the company. Their stock has fallen off nearly 20% since the Pride merchandise broke and really hasn't recovered to any great degree. It's slightly upticked recently, but it's still a net loss overall. But it just got worse for them because 7 Republican attorney generals just warned Target on Thursday that the company's controversial Pride collection contained vulgar clothing that may violate child protection laws. So this was headed up by the Attorney General of Indiana, Todd Rokita, who sent a letter to Target. I will enclose a link to the letter in the description. However, overall, it is condemning, to say the least, of Target's recent Pride campaigns. This would be the first legal action taken against one of these companies. Of course, we've seen, financial action taken by consumers, but actual legal action, people landing in deep legal trouble for this, that could be very, very damaging to future ideas of these Pride celebrations that companies want to get into. Overall, I think that it's probably for the best. This sort of celebration is just not conducive to good business, In doing this, you more and more alienate customers who don't agree with these ideals that you're pushing, and we've seen that in the last little bit, with Bud Light collapsing and now Target collapsing, and there have been a couple other smaller ones. Right now, Ben & Jerry's push is going on, which isn't going to go anywhere because, of course, conservatism is not Ben & Jerry's primary market. So, shocker, Ben & Jerry's hates conservatives. Is this news to anyone at all? Even still, you have seen their parent company take a bit of a hit over the last couple days on their stock price from the whole July 4th debacle, which I'm just not going to touch on too much today. So you might see some progress there. Overall, though, this is a good sign. This means that Target is going to be backing off. You're not going to repeat something if you think that it might actually lead to true legal troubles. You're not going to do it. It's just not going to be worth it to them. And more of this, basically. Republican legislatures, Republican politicians need to start doing more of this, protecting children from these predator companies by force of law. It's why we have laws. So next up is from the Alaska Beacon. This was recently the Biden administration invested a huge amount of money into internet infrastructure across the country. In most of the country, this is kind of a meh thing. Most of the country already has pretty decent internet. But this is a real boon to Alaskans. This is coming at the same time as right now a lot of far western Alaska are experiencing intermittent internet outages, with the Quintillion cable up near Uktiavik being cut by currently it's said that it was cut by an ice shoal. There has been some speculation, purely speculation, that this might have been some sort of an intentional act, but no one has come forward to claim it, and it looks more and more like it was an ice shoal. Anyway, the cable that provides high-speed internet to much of western Alaska has been cut, and this has launched an Alaskan debate about how we should spend this roughly $1 billion that was granted to Alaska from the new program from the Biden administration. Senator Murkowski from Alaska had a little bit to say on it. She believed, quote, "It's not just about getting the money, it's about how we implement this." Murkowski's point ultimately boils down to this. We need to be focusing on not just getting a broadband connection, but multiple different connections so that if one of them goes down, the others can pick up the slack and help to keep everyone connected. I remember, when the cable first broke, a lot of stores and businesses in western Alaska closed almost entirely because they were all connected through the various companies that were using the Quintillion cable and could no longer access any internet on any of their systems. That's come back up a little bit. Those companies have all secured secondary routes, but internet is still incredibly limited. So this is a good thing. If this is the approach that the Alaskan government decides to take all in all on spending this $1 billion infrastructure investment, then that will probably be a very, very good thing for Alaska in the long term. I think that some of it should go into building some satellite internet infrastructure here, because that is always very reliable, especially in emergency situations. But satellite internet can also get really thrown off by weather patterns, so you don't want to go all in on that either. All right, lastly for today, we've got from the Jerusalem Post's Thomas Stern. He's talking about the riots in France, and this is big international news. Everyone's talking about it. What they're not talking about so much is how anti-Semitic they have turned, and this is kind of harsh to hear. The riots in France recently deliberately defaced a Holocaust memorial, and they wrote on this memorial, "En affaire une Shoah." That's terrible French, probably wrong entirely, but the translation of that would be, "We are going to make a Shoah," which Shoah would be referring to Holocaust. So it's hard to see how you could not think that that is just blatant, dangerous levels of anti-Semitism. But the thing is that you're not going to see a lot of people calling, the mainstream media just isn't really calling these riots anti-Semitic, which is dangerous because they're turning very bad very fast. And it's becoming concerning to anyone even remotely invested in human rights to see people just straight up calling for a repeat of one of the most horrific incidents in recent history, just openly in the streets of Europe, in the streets of Paris. That's concerning, and that's new, and that's not welcomed. We don't want that to become popular. But this has been a trend recently, especially in Palestinian sort of things. You had recently "globalize the Intifada" became a catchphrase and a slogan that people used, not really realizing that the Intifada was the attempt to murder a bunch of Jews in Israel. So no, we don't want to globalize systematic ethnic murder. That's a bad thing, actually. Maybe we want to take a balanced and reasonable approach that doesn't involve the death of millions of people. I might be crazy there. That might just be, insane, crazy theory, But I don't feel great about the fact that so many of these new advocacy movements seem so comfortable with calling for millions of people to literally die. That seems like a bad thing, and maybe won't lead to the best outcomes long term for, humanity. Just a thought. Just my crazy opinions here. Of course, you can't really blame every rioter for this necessarily. Riots are chaotic, messy places, and people have different opinions, but it's certainly concerning that this is becoming more and more accepted. And even recently, it seems like there aren't very many people willing to stand up against evil in the world. You've got, in France also, there was the stabbing where a man just walked onto a playground and stabbed a bunch of children, and no one really did anything. Sure, they shouted and screamed and said, "Stop, please," but stopped him. And that's concerning. That's concerning. I think that it's not a good thing if all of a sudden everyone is murdering each other in the streets and calling for mass genocide. Probably a bad thing. Well, that just about wraps up all I have for you today. Thanks for tuning in to FrostTalk. I'll see you all a little later.